Hello, and welcome to Game Changer Live. We were created to inspire with topics around coaching, positive mindset, neuroscience, overcoming perfectionism, and more. We endeavor to bring you the most authentic and unedited version of ourselves as possible. And that's why we go live. So you're going to see me fumble and make mistakes just like you would if you knew me in real life. That's the goal, so that you can see who I authentically am without bells and whistles or me trying to impress you. We air our shows live every Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we bring on occasional guests about twice a month. Our motto for this show is so important to me. It is together we inspire. So let's get inspired today. My name is Daniel Connor. I'm the owner of Connor's Coaching as well as the host for Game Changer Live. And I am a certified coach. I have an ACC and a CPC credential in those areas, which means that I hold myself to a gold standard of coaching ethics and behavior. I'm also a leader for my local chapter of the International Coaching Federation. I'm taking on a membership role this year, and I am an energy leadership master practitioner. And perfection is the worst, in my opinion, because it's all about holding yourself back or pretending to be someone that you're not to control the future or to impress people who were never really meant to be in your life in the first place. My clients learn to overcome perfectionism. They learn to change from the inside out. Instead of trying to control the future, they produce amazing results. Instead of holding themselves back, they make progress. And rather than spending all of their time trying to impress those people who were never meant to be in your life, they instead define who they want to see in the mirror and work hard to become a person that they are satisfied with. Ultimately, we all want to feel satisfied with the person we see in the mirror. And today's topic might seem a little disconnected from that because we're talking about emotions versus reality today. And there's a reason for that. But before I get to it, there's a disclaimer here. We're going to be talking about emotion today. And I want to draw a clear line in the sand. First of all, emotions are real. And there are all sorts of causes for us to feel an emotion. Feeling sad does not mean that you are depressed. However, if you're feeling sad consistently, or that sadness is preventing you from living your life the way you want to, and you are not capable of overcoming it yourself, a therapist is the right person to help you with that. Not coaching, not a YouTube video, an actual qualified therapist is necessary for those things. So this is a disclaimer. This is not advice. This is not therapy. This is not about those things. This is about the emotion when it's caused by something that's very um, controllable within your scope, and or where the emotion is not serious or severe enough to impact your life. There's something in coaching we learned about function versus dysfunction. If you can pick yourself up and be functional, then uh, therapy probably isn't necessary. But if I as a coach see a client who their emotions are obviously getting in the way of their daily function, then that's when we need to ethically refer them out to therapy. And so I really want to talk about the types of emotions that get in the way of functionality but don't prevent functionality. Um, Now, let me tell you about my day today, which is why we're doing this topic. And that is, I woke up this morning, I had a migraine. I still have a migraine. It hurts. I've already canceled my episode, an episode just last month because I had a migraine and I really felt bad about it. Um, and so I was already miserable about it today. I'm already having to push through that physical pain, that manifestation of pain. And in addition to that, I didn't really have an idea about what I wanted to talk about for this show. So I was feeling really rough about it. Um, I don't, if you knew me, you know that I make my own bread each week. It is a kind of a hobby, kind of an obsession, and it's for my own health that I make rye bread for myself um, every week. And today was the day to make the rye bread. I was down to my last two slices this morning. I promised myself I was going to make it. I was already pushing through that migraine just for this, just to make bread. And halfway through my second loaf of, because I make two, halfway through my second loaf of bread, my stand mixer just stopped working. The motor would no longer turn the little paddle that does all of the work. So I had to manually do the bread, and it, on top of the migraine, on top of not knowing what my show was going to do, and also the frustration of having my device not work, which I had just spent about $70 replacing the bowl and replacing the paddles because the old ones were broken. And I also replaced the base plate, and it was multiple paddles that I replaced, not just the bread hook. But anyway, I'd spent money on this device, and then all of a sudden, the thing I hadn't replaced is the part that breaks. Um, I was furious. I was furious. I pushed past it, and I was still upset. And I talked to my husband about it. I said that I was just livid that I had spent all this money and it wasn't going to work, and I didn't know what to do, and I was frustrated. I actually broke into tears for a little bit, which may seem a little bit weird, but I am still in physical pain. So the last thing I wanted to do was prepare for this show. It was real close. It came down to the last hour before I put the show on, where I said, you know what, Daniel, time to put your money where your mouth is. You're a firm believer in what I'm going to share with you is what I call a truism. It's something that I use to remind myself of things that I want to remember. A life lesson that I've had to learn multiple times the hard way. It usually becomes a truism. And you need to put your money where your mouth is and practice what you preach. So I pulled this truism out of my pocket. I took a shower. I thought about the truism. I pushed myself. I thought, no, you know what? There's some other truisms here that I want to talk about. So it came down to this balancing act, this weighing act of, do I put on the show because it's consistent with who I want to be, or do I practice the type of self care that is necessary for taking care of myself and making sure that I'm functional? And you know what? I came to the conclusion that putting on the show outweighs that self care need. So I'm going to share with you the truism. I'm going to talk about why it's important for me, and I'm gonna just be really frank today. I only had an hour to prepare for this episode, so I might get a little rambly here and there, but that authentically is who I am sometimes. Sometimes I ramble. So let's move on. So I told you that I took a shower, I took time to breathe, I took time to process, I took time to think about it. And this brings me to my very first truism that I want to share with you. And this one is the important one. This is the one that sparked this episode, and also made me feel like not only is this a valid episode topic, but it's an important episode topic because I needed to be reminded about this truism today. That's the whole thing about truisms, is you keep them in your back pocket so that they're there for you to help you remember what you're doing, what you want to do, and who you want to be. So the truism that came up today was feelings inform action. They do not excuse reaction. Feelings inform action. They do not excuse reaction. And it comes down to action versus reaction. The difference between those two is that reaction is this thoughtless, consistent with a feeling, usually, um, thing you do. So let's say you stub your toe and you react. Maybe you cuss. Where an action is logical. Action takes the feeling into consideration, but then it weighs it against other priorities. And so if you stubbed your toe, maybe you would take a deep breath, realize that cussing isn't going to help, take off your shoe, examine your toe, make sure it's not broken, and then decide what course you're going to take. The thing about it is that feelings are information. They do not regulate your behavior. You regulate your behavior, your subconscious or your consciousness. They regulate your behavior. You choose to let those emotions dictate your actions. And again, I'm not talking about the types that are caused by illness. I'm not talking about the types that would be better suited for therapy. I'm talking about the types of emotions where you can choose a different course of action. And emotions are typically created by your brain to influence your behavior. There are very valid reasons for us to, when we have a migraine, not want to do a thing we had planned. Our body is trying to send a signal that we need to care for it. Okay. But it all comes down to this first truism. The second truisms, I'm not going to really go into depth here. Second, third, fourth, fifth, there's several here. But they come around to prioritizing self care and acting in a way that is consistent with your ethics, your ethos, your goals, your values, and being accountable to yourself. Going against those feelings, those urges, preventing yourself from reacting and instead choosing action takes discipline and also resource. And you have limited resources. All human beings have limited resources. Some of us can do remarkable things, but trust me when I say this. You have limited resources, and your resource limit is different than everyone else's. It's up to you to know what that limit is. Let me explain something that a friend calls spoon theory. And it really is about this limited resource thing. I went to a therapist who said that there are 5 types of pain. There's physical pain, emotional pain, hunger, tiredness, and something else I can't remember. But they all pull from the same resources. And we're going to call that resource drawer that you pull from your spoon drawer. You have only so many spoons. Whenever you need to push through pain, you take a spoon. Whenever you feel a little stressed out, you pull out a spoon. Whenever you're exhausted, but you have to stay up to do something, more of those spoons come out of that drawer. There's a finite resource, we're calling them spoons, and they run out. They don't magically come back into the drawer. You have to wash them, sanitize them, dry them, and put them back in. And that takes work. That takes self care. And self care is something we've talked a lot about on the show. It's different for everyone, it's not always going to a spa. I recommend looking at the five love languages, learning about which you respond to the best from yourself, and practicing that form of self care, whether it's quality time by spending some time by yourself thinking quietly, or words of affirmation where you stand in a mirror and tell yourself that you are important, that you are good, that you are worthwhile, that you love yourself, or whether that is acts of touch where you go for a massage or a pedicure or something like that because it reminds you that you are important, or maybe it's acts of service where you go and you clean your kitchen and you remind yourself that you deserve a clean kitchen. When, that's mine. Feel free to steal it. But you have limited resources and you have to fill that drawer, that drawer of spoons. And it's no wonder that as soon as I was done, I'd finished making the bread, that I realized that I needed to recharge my spoons. So I cleaned the kitchen. I took a shower. I gave myself some words of encouragement. I reminded myself of what is truly important. I meditated a little bit about this. And of course, that helped replenish some of my spoons, but not all of them. Part of deciding how you're going to act also needs to be informed by how you're going to balance your spoons. So maybe you do have enough spoons to push through and make bread despite having a migraine. Do you have enough spoons to also do your live show later in the day, even though you haven't prepared for it? What can you do to make sure you have enough spoons? Now, there are some traps here, and I've already talked about the most important one, and that is illness. But there are legitimate reasons that our body reacts the way it does. And this is especially true when it comes to illness itself. When we're ill, the emotions that we're experiencing, fatigue, a loss of energy, or whatever, pain, are signaling sometimes that we need to take care of ourselves, of our body, that something is wrong and it deserves our attention. And ignoring that is not always recommended. In fact, there are also types of mental illness that also come with a host of emotional stresses that should never just be ignored, especially if you notice a pattern of behavior that for this whole week it's really hard for me to get out of bed, or that it's hard for me to push through pain. Ignoring it is not what I'm talking about here. Choosing to act does not mean that you're ignoring the issue. If you are experiencing a pattern of these types of feelings or emotions, or the if you're unsure in the first place, if you're not sure that you can push through it, it's probably better to talk to a therapist. The second trap that I want to talk about is toxic positivity. And toxic positivity is a reactive mindset. And it usually is a type of reaction where you purposefully refuse to acknowledge a feeling that you're having and instead act in a way that is completely or sorry, react in a way that's completely opposed to the feeling. This is sort of like sweeping dust under a rug. You feel sad, you feel pain, and you just shove it up underneath that rug, hide it, walk all over it, and then presume that your life is going to be fine. But and that's true. It is true that you have this capability to do this, to ignore. And sometimes that's necessary. But if you do it too often, what is going to happen to all of that built up dust? It doesn't just magically disappear, it builds up. It can even cause illness. And you have a lumpy carpet. It looks really weird. So, we're not talking about practicing toxic positivity here. We're not talking about pushing positivity on yourself or others. This is instead about conscious choice. This is about weighing in, deciding what the best course of action is going to be, and making the conscious choice to practice the type of discipline that you need. A coach is capable of helping you process all of these things. Not every coach does this type of work. I am on the life coach side of things. I don't work with executive, I mean, I don't only exclusively work with executives. I work with average, everyday, normal people like you. And the ways that coaches can really help prepare you to do this kind of work, to push through pain or and weigh your spoons and make sure that you have enough of them and that you're taking care of yourself, is by doing values work, getting clear on your priorities. Because for me, I have a clear priority to do this show. It gives me a lot back to do this show. Part of it actually helps me rebuild my spoons. Prioritizing your self care is another thing that coaches like me are good at helping their clients do, especially in finding ways to practice self care that maybe you've gotten into a rut. Maybe that that bubble bath is just not quite cutting it anymore, and you're not really sure what else you could do for self care. We can help you explore some different options. We can also help you explore and recognize sources and patterns, because sometimes the feelings that we're having are directly related to something that is controllable or changeable. In the case of my migraines, for example, I know that when I reduce salt in my diet, I suffer from migraines less than I do when I have a lot of salt. I also have fewer migraines when I have a neck rub, or so I'm going to be asking my husband for one of those later today, or when I'm taking care of my sinus health because I have a sinus issue where my sinuses get blocked up. Those things tend to lead me to or be predisposed to having migraines. So I know that I can take care of those things. I've seen patterns in my behavior. When I reduce the amount of salt I eat, I have fewer migraines. Venting, validating, and acknowledgement is another skill that coaches have. And this is a skill that we share with therapists. But we're really good at listening. We're really good at acknowledging, and we're really good at validating. And sometimes it's necessary to talk the emotion out so that you can take the action that's consistent with who you want to be. Because sometimes that's what they need. And finally, coaches are exceptionally good. In fact, there's no other profession out there that's better than us at helping our clients establish their own authentic goals and to help hold them accountable to those goals. And that might feel like it's a really big statement, but it's 100% true. That is literally what coaching is all about. So, in summary, I want to transition to be off the show. I have bright lights on me and I'm feeling my migraine spike. My spoons are running low. Here are the key takeaways. Being in tune with your emotional and physical state is important. Your emotions and physical state, your feelings, how much pain you're in, how your emotions are doing, all of those things. They're information that can help inform so that you can make conscious decisions and to act on them, but they should never excuse reactive behavior. Or rather, that should be the exception to the rule. You'll be happier if you do. That's my sincere belief, personally. You have a limited pool of resources. We call them spoons. And each of us has a different amount of that limited resource. Some of us have more spoons than others. I am never going to run a marathon. I do not have the spoons to push my body through a marathon. Avoid the pitfalls of ignoring illness and embracing toxic positivity. Those are pitfalls. And get a therapist if you need one to help you overcome the types of illness that therapy is specifically designed to assist with. If you can, hire a coach to help identify your core values, to help form and hold you accountable to your goals, and to practice this conscious action versus reaction. And I am so glad that I pushed today. It was worth it. I am going to feel the fact that I pushed it because I had already depleted my spoon drawer. I washed all of those spoons and put them back in, and then I took them out again to do this show. But it's worth it because I did the values work needed to know that this is far more important than pampering myself because I have a migraine or because my KitchenAid mixer just decided to stop working. I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for tuning in and watching the episode today. It would mean a lot to me if I could hear from you in the comments about what inspired you about the episode today. I also want to invite you to like this video and to subscribe for more content. To watch some of my past content, you can click on the channel and then the live feature, and it'll show you all of my past videos. You can also go to playlists, and I have my playlist separated into my episodes versus my guests' episodes, and they're all great content. I'll see you next week, Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I believe we have a guest this next episode, and I'm looking forward to that. So I'll see you then. Thanks, and bye.